Welcome to the WangHiro podcast, where we answer Malaysians' burning questions about personal finance with fact-based answers.
Compared to our peers outside of Malaysia, our salaries can appear paltry. In fact, some Malaysians are paid so low they live paycheck to paycheck, despite having a pretty good job on paper. This is one of the reasons why so many Malaysians look for jobs overseas. Most of us know a friend or a relative who has moved to Singapore for a better paying job. So why is it happening? Malaysia's low salaries, whose fault is it and what can we do about it? This is what we will be talking about today on WangHiro's Personal Finance. So John, what is actually happening in Malaysia when it comes to salaries? Why are we paid so low? Are we paid so low? Are we actually getting paid lowly?
Different school of thoughts. I've seen even some people that say that we are better off from Singaporeans.
Oh,
And then some, yeah, there's some school of thoughts that people say that, because if you think about where your vantage point is, if you're an entrepreneur, you're earning good salary, and you live in Malaysia, or you're professional in an MNC, you live in Malaysia, actually cost of living here is cheaper.
true.
Housing especially, right? But if you're looking from a vantage point when you're already lowly paid, and then your cost of living here in the Klang Valley, because you're lowly paid, then the cost of living will seem high to you. Then you think, oh, you go to Singapore, currency conversion. But unless you get there, then there are other things that you need to look at, which is like housing there isn't cheap. Food there isn't cheap as well. If you need to commute, because they save money, they commute from Johor, then that is taking a toll which cannot be measured in currency, which is fatigue. You see? So I think overall, as a region, I think we're paid okay. But there's definitely a gap because there are nuances in every industry and every person's circumstance. And I think that's what we want to discuss today, because if you look at the GDP per capita, we are much better off than Thailand and Indonesia, you know. So if you think, okay,
but the
so I
grass
know,
is always greener on the other side, right?
correct.
Looking at Indonesia and Thailand, we then compare ourselves to Singapore, the US, UK,
Correct.
Australia, which are some popular migration destinations for Malaysians.
Yes. You go migrate to Australia, you get paid as a worker, but you get taxed like 30-40%.
Yeah, correct.
So
correct.
again, you see, I have a friend.
Grass is always greener on the other side until you reach the other side.
Precisely. I have a friend, he's earning close to probably close to 20,000 Australian a month. Now you think of it, wow, convert back, it's almost like 80K, right?
Yeah.
But he tells me he's living paycheck to paycheck.
Agree.
I kid you not, he struggles to save because tax takes away a big chunk. Okay, he's already definitely in the highest tax tier bracket. Okay, and then at the same time, sorry,
babysitting.
He's got 3 kids. Okay, wife just started working. Then you have to pay for all these extracurricular activities for your kids. That doesn't come cheap. Okay, so all that. Okay, so maybe I want to rewind back a bit. I mentioned this term called GDP per capita. Now, I want, for the audience out there who may not know what's the importance of it, I want to explain this a little bit. It's basically a measurement for the value of the output of a person. GDP stands for gross domestic product. Now, if you think of the country as a business, so if that person is the country as a business, the value of this business is the GDP, the output, the sales, okay? Is the GDP.
Okay.
And then the value of the output per person is the GDP per capita. So the salary he or she is getting paid, that's his, in a way, his sales for the individual business unit. So if he is making like 100,000 ringgit salary, that's his output. And then you divide it against the output of the entire country, that is the GDP per capita. So obviously, if you were to benchmark against a company, it's revenue per employee. You think about it that way. In the most simple, it may not be as precise or as accurate as that way, but it's the revenue per employee. Okay.
Is it like my always the question I always ask is like, ask myself is when I look at these GDP figures, is like, how objective is it in measuring like how much we're paid, how much, are we doing okay? Quality of living, standard of living.
Yeah. If you are at the higher tier salary bracket, quality of living, just imagine if you have 10 million Malaysian ringgit, you live like a king here,
True.
Right? But 10 million Malaysian ringgit, you go to the most expensive city, either in Switzerland or in Monaco, you live like a pauper. Correct or not? You think about it. If you,
I mean, we don't
even
even have to go there. I think if you look at like Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
The rent alone is like 8K, I think.
yes,
8K is US dollars. So that's gonna
Correct.
burn you like 10 million in a few years.
correct. So again, it's really the context of what you're looking at. If you just think Malaysian, yeah, but you get to live in Malaysia. Cost of living here, if you know how to make do, you actually can live quite well, actually, right?
Mm.
But I think the other reason why we want to anchor this episode too is that there must be a reason why people get paid less here in this region, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like your original question, why does a pay gap exist? Okay, so I have a few. First one is most multinationals actually originate from either Western or more developed countries, and they see uh, emerging markets like Asia, Southeast Asia, as a lower cost base because lower cost of living, lower value in currency, as well as not having employees here to a certain extent may not have a broad experience of running very large organizations. Okay, so they see it's like, hey, Malaysia, you're managing an organization of like 100 people, 200 people. You may not have the broad experience of running in a different culture. It's not to say I agree with it. I actually don't really agree with it because having worked in Shell and having been exposed to like outside, Malaysians actually are very fast learners, very capable people that can run larger than life kind of what the industry think they can lah. And I think it's just an excuse to suppress wages and costs here lah. I mean, as a business, you're always finding cheaper costs. That's why America has lost the lead of semiconductor manufacturing. You think about it, why there's a trade war today, they say outsource everything. In the past, outsource to China, outsource to Japan. Because cost was cheaper. Okay. Now they realize, oh crap, these guys got so good at manufacturing, and manufacturing a semicon as technology develops more and more. It's like it's an advantage. And now they realize, oh crap, even if I want to bring it back here to the US, it's going to cost me more because of labor issues, which is the second reason why I think Malaysia gets paid very low, because our labor laws are very weak. Labor laws are strong, but the labor unions are weak. Sorry, that's the
right. I mean, we are not a unionized country, I would say,
precisely
compared to the US. But I mean, from my perspective, I've never thought of unions existing in Malaysia. I mean, should we have unions then?
We do have unions actually.
We do? Okay.
We do. So like we
where
have
are they? And what kind of unions are out there? Can I actually do things for us? And can we join
Okay,
them?
so there's one, it's called, the largest is actually the MTUC, which is the Malaysian Trade Union Congress.
Okay.
Okay. Even civil servants, they have a union. It's called CUEPACS. Why I know? My father was the Secretary General.
Okay.
Okay, but for the civil servants, they really did fight. That's why you see all the increase in pay for civil servants. All that was a lot of work done in the background by CUEPACS, actually. Okay, so there are unions, but I think because of the way the government, leads to my third point, government labor policies in Malaysia allow such huge influx of foreign workers. And because of that, the union, you think about Japan, you think about Germany, you think about, Japan, put Japan aside. You think about the European countries that have quite a strong socialist movement. The unions there are very, very strong because they're very clear on the government policies for foreign labor. You go to restaurants, yes, you still get foreign labor and all that kind of thing, but it's so strict and so costly for them to hire foreign labor that in a way they have to get a French guy, a local French guy, or a local in the UK they got a lot of Polish citizens because of EU policies. But the moment Britain left EU, all the restaurants in UK got really expensive because they can only hire locals now. You see?
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, but why are we keeping these like laws in place to allow all these workers to come in? Is it because we cannot actually pay for our local workers? It's like a chicken and egg, it feels like.
Correct. I don't think it's the point of can we not pay. I think if the circumstances or the policies are created in such a way, Malaysian businesses will find ways to be more efficient. That's why today, why a lot of businesses don't want to automate, because automation upfront cost is expensive. I can just hire a cheap laborer to go and do it for me, correct or not? Instead of me paying upfront 1 million to automate my line, or if you've been to KL recently, there's a slew of robot waiters now. So they
Yeah, I think they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Correct, right? So if labor laws prevent or restrict more foreign laborers coming in, right? People who are doing dishwashing, people who are doing this. I was in Mid Valley yesterday, Louis. Nyonya Colors, no Malaysians. Even the supervisor keying in is most likely a Sri Lankan or Bangla or whatever, today.
Wow,
So
that's interesting.
yeah, you think about it, right? You think about it. And then the dishwasher is most likely a foreign worker also, right? But if they restrict this foreign worker policy, then what happens? Yes, costs will go up. But then costs will go up, they'll have a lashback from the consumers. Then these businesses are forced to think other ways, like automation or whatever. So it's a chicken and egg, like what you said, it's a push and pull. It's just how strong our political will is to set these policies. Because it's like US, when Trump came in, he said, no way, foreign labor, foreign guys, even the HB1B visa, the professional visa was stopped, for a while. Right? Then the Silicon Valley guys were complaining, hey, I can't get my Indian programmers, I can't get my Indian system designers, all that kind of thing, right? So I reiterate, one, MNCs will want to suppress salary costs because for them, they said their argument is that you have lower currency value, you have lower cost of living, and then why we come here is because we want to lower cost, right? Second thing, we have strong labor laws, but the labor unions are not as strong as what we see in Europe, or America. Okay. Third is that Malaysian labor policies allow a large influx of, foreign labor. That's why cost is always cheaper. So that's why when they look at a Malaysian worker, they say, hey, you don't want to do it? Okay, I hire a foreign guy, right? Last point is this. SME contribution, which hires most of our workers in Malaysia, not the MNCs, right? Their contribution is only about 38.1% of GDP today. Now, you contrast that to Singapore.
Okay.
Singapore is, their contribution is about 44% to the value of the GDP, you see. So what happens is this. That means because your value add is higher, then they are more willing to put in more to retrain their staff, to add higher value, to add higher margin to the product. But here, because of all the reasons I gave you, the efficiency is not as much as the Singaporeans. You see where I'm coming from? That means one worker in Singapore may have to multitask to do more, and then and ironically, most likely they hire a Malaysian guy also.
Yeah, it's like because they keep. Yeah, so like another chicken and egg problem.
Correct.
Okay, so like when we consider all of these are more like macro economics problems that contribute to our salary. I mean, as in terms of the percentage, right? How much do these macro forces contribute to salaries being low? You think out of 100%? There's also like our own factor, which we'll come to after this. But
correct. I think it's still a big chunk. I think
half, maybe 50.
Yeah, half to 60%. Yeah, half to 60%, and 40%, like what you rightly pointed out. It's actually a lot of it has to do with individual self. And ironically, that number is so small because it takes mental fortitude, it takes a bit of courage, it takes like a lot of research on the individual person to actually like figure it out. Okay. Yeah. So like, how would you advise?
Firstly, I think sometimes when I look at people saying they're not getting paid fairly, when I look at their salary, actually they are getting paid fairly. So the first step would be like, okay, John, how would we know, if we are getting paid fairly or not? Myself, I always like go to Glassdoor, but any other ways to find out?
Yeah, I think Job Street is another place. I mean, job sites.
Job sites, right?
Job sites. I think Glassdoor is a good phenomena that happened. I think you actually pointed something pretty good, which is actually peers. Because peers, you see, on job sites, there's a bit of a skewed way of representing it because the employers will want to like. They also engage consultants to do benchmarks because they will go to one company get a benchmark, a middle guy will come out with a report and say this is roughly how much. But in the end, right, if you really want to get an edge, you yourself need to find out, hey, what are the specific skills that are up and coming or trendy right now? Like, for example, prompt engineers for AI. right? Or
Mhm.
like I was speaking to a colleague who is in a chemical company, but he's actually specifically in IT. What are the things that they require? Say, oh, I have industry knowledge for chemicals, or I have industry knowledge for this, but as an IT person. So that actually gives you that bargaining power as well, Rather
Right.
than I'm a generalist IT guy, but I've never done work for chemical or airlines or whatsoever. That actually is also a bargaining power that you can get.
I mean, to add to this, earlier I thought about like some years ago there was this
Mm.
called like something called a job called like conversion writer.
Okay.
Conversion writer. So instead of just doing the normal writing, you also do some like very
Mm.
conversion focused writing. And according to my analysis some years ago, that job actually paid 3 times more than a normal writer. So just having two skills that complement one another in a job would, I think, increase your chances of getting paid higher, right?
Right. That's
So
right.
I mean, to that, let's now jump to that point about like how do we actually increase our pay, right? So one is like, okay, we want to get that skill, and last week we also talked about salary negotiation.
Oh
Right?
yeah, that's right. We link it in the show notes.
I'll put it in the show notes. So salary negotiation is another way you can do it. Briefly, like you have to also like I mean, there's a long process, so I think it's best for you guys to just take a look at the video. What other tips do you have, John? Like how to prepare yourselves? Like, okay, we find out maybe I go to Glassdoor, ask my peers, oh, actually I'm getting paid, like I should get paid 10K, but I only get 5K. Should I actually like leave that company? Do you think?
Actually, I think what first point is that you already spend so much time and effort to come into the company, build your network, right? I think first stage is always talk to your boss. So, and rather than just like talk to your boss and get a yes or no, you have to be prepared for the repercussions. Okay, I tell you why. Some bosses, they love their employees to be dumb, stupid, remain loyal, don't want to move, right? And when the employee started being a little bit smarter and try to like ask these kind of questions, they'll try to shelve them into like, oh, this guy's about a potential lever, so they'll try to shelve them into a cold storage or play the game lah, virtually lah, play the game, right? So you have to think 2 steps ahead, So the moment you start a salary negotiation, they'll counter you or they don't counter you. And then worst part, if they don't counter you, are they going to shove you into that? So you got to be prepared for that eventuality. But actually it's good because then you know the true color. Because if this company is showing you this kind of treatment, you just imagine how far can you grow? Can you actually progress? Can you even, be promoted? Right? So they talk about, talk about loyalty and that kind of thing. In today's day and age, right? There's no such thing as, you work one career 20, 30 years of your life. Like, I just did a podcast with a guy, the co-founder of Make Time Pay. He actually said in the US, you actually, in a 20, 30-year career, you change 7 different careers, and some even different industries. In Malaysia, I can't remember what was the number he gave, was lower, definitely lower. I think that in Malaysia it's about 7 times on average. But in the US was more, 20 over times over the career. So we're getting there. If you want to become a developed country, it's already a norm. We cannot be expecting lifelong employment, blame employer for everything. Employer should provide me for it. No, guys, wake up. Wake up. Be professional, serve your company loyally, right? During the period in which you're employed. But remember, it's a transaction. It is a transaction.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's like, sometimes I mean, it's quite dangerous for me to build friendships at work, too strong friendships, and you're like, oh, I don't want to leave because my friends are here. Maybe my team needs me. Like that kind of thing can deter you from leaving because you say, oh, it's a family. It's not a family, lah. It's one of the worst things you can call a business, like a business, a family. It's not a family. Your family's gonna like be there for you, right, when you're sick, but company will
the employers will want you to think that way. That's why they have you all in team building and all that. It's kumbaya.
It's not kumbaya at all,
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest mistakes. I feel like that's one thing you have to like remove, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So if you think, oh, these are my family, whatever, the loyalty comes from that kind of thing. Yeah. I've seen people's literally their career stagnate because of friendship.
Yes.
Then the friend leaves.
Yes. Then you feel betrayed. But
you
actually,
will feel betrayed, right? You will feel betrayed. So, okay, so other than the salary part, which we of course you have to go to the video, okay? Then other things are like, okay, we want to do some side hustles, which maybe eventually could turn into a business. That's what John did, and that's what I did.
Mm.
So I think on the flip side, you know, although salaries may not always increase, but I find that in Malaysia, business opportunities are quite good compared to a lot of other countries.
Precisely.
Like in Singapore, I think the startup costs are much higher, and you actually face a lot more red tape. You know, when you want to set up any kind of business. Like I saw recently that there was this curry pub seller who earned 80K a month.
Mm.
Yeah, but in Singapore, you probably have to like go through a lot of licensing lah, like clean everything, you know, put out hawker stock.
Hawker
Yeah,
store,
a lot
all
of
that. Yeah.
different steps.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's a very quick overview about like how, you know, we okay, what should we do about this pay gap? Obviously, John mentioned there's like all these macroeconomic stuff, and there's also the micro stuff which you can do on an individual level. Any last words, John, to the
No,
audience?
I think more importantly is take ownership of your own pay. A lot of people abscond that to whatever. The moment you take ownership of it, you will figure out a way. You will ask people, you will do research. But unless that decision to take ownership happens, whatever we share here is not going to help.
Nah, makes sense. I think yes, complaining, it doesn't really help. I mean, I get it. The salary is low. I mean, speaking from privileged positions as well, but at the same time, if we take a step towards like be more accountable towards our life circumstances, it will help a little bit more lah, versus like just sitting there hoping that things will change.
That's right.
On its own, you know.
That's right.
Even when you switch to a different country, the same problem will persist.
That's right.
I know a lot of my friends who in Malaysia, they felt like they were earning not enough. They went to Australia, earn even less because of the tax, one. Number two, the cost of living went up, way up, especially if you have family. As I understand, it's like it's like the half part-time nannies cost like 1,300 Australian part-time nannies cost 1,300 Australian dollars a month for them. So even if you make, and in Malaysia it's a lot less than that. Malaysia full time you can get like people to help you for 1,000, 1,500, you know. So so over to you, our audience. Is your salary good enough for you? Or do you think you're paid too little? Leave a comment below. If you found this video interesting, hit like on this video. It will help us with the YouTube algorithm. If you like content like this around how to increase your income, make sure to subscribe to WangHiro. And we'll see you again in our next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.